Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. On The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. Every now and again, we also pick a topic that's important, that's key, and give our opinion on that. Tonight, we're doing both. We have an editorial for you on how Accra's green spaces are being depleted. We'll be telling you what we've seen so far, how serious it is, not just for the environment, but for also social stability, and why that ought to be put to a stop. Later on, we'll bring you an exclusive interview with CEO of MTN Group, Ralph Mupita, where we discuss the future of the company, the African landscape, the macroeconomic environment, and other issues. We're live. Send us your comments on the WhatsApp now on the screen. Stay with us. So welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the depletion of Accra's green zones. What do we know so far? Last week, the president signed an executive instrument to declassify 146 acres of Achimota forest. That essentially means the zone that was designated to be a forest is no longer the same, a forest reserve. Now, this 146 acres of forest reserve amounted to 40.5% of the forest reserve of Achimota. The official explanation given by the minister, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapo, is that the Owu family, the original owners of the forest land, prior to its acquisition in 1921 and 1927 for the setting up of Achimota School, had requested their land back. A couple of issues had come up. The family, when they met with the Kufuor government in 2008, had asked for 90 acres. How did that increase from 90 acres to 361 acres? That was the first issue. The second issue was who were the real people who would take ownership of the land after its reversion. We don't have answers for all those issues. Then a few days later, a document circulated on social media suggesting that the will of the former Forestry Commission CEO, Sir John, also known as Kojo Uswe-Freye, had shown that 4 plots of land within the Achimota forest area had been bequeathed to people in his family. One was 5 acres, the other was less than an acre. 2, the size was not given. 1 was jointly owned, the other he owned solely. Then within that same document, which has been widely circulated, it was revealed that a 5-acre land at the Sakumono Ramsar site had also been willed to somebody else. And then a plot of land in the Aviation land area had also been willed to somebody. The ministry says they are investigating to check the seriousness and veracity of these. Meanwhile, the Lands Commission has come out to say they have no record that Sir John owned those lands. We are not going to try and prove who owns the land or who does not own the land. Our job tonight is to show you a pattern, a very disturbing pattern, which reveals a much deeper problem than just one man. And to tell you that story, we'll start from the Sakumono Ramsar site. That site emerged after the town of Tema was built. It's the buffer zone between Sakumo town and Tema. Sakumono town and Tema. It's a huge tract of land. I'll show you a map of the Greater Accra region that shows the serious reduction of the green patches. All the boxes labeled red are supposed to be either forest reserves, Ramsar sites, or lands acquired for agricultural purposes. So starting from your right, the figure on your right is the Sakumono Ramsar site. That particular plot of land was initially 6,750 acres, or a little over 2,700 hectares of land. It's a massive structure. If you look at the bottom, to the west, there's the Asaprachona train station. To the right, which is to the east, communities 3, community 5, community 6, community 10 and 11 of Tema. Then to the northern part of that, there's the Accra-Tema motorway. The original size of the Sakumono Ramsar site, and a Ramsar site, by the way, is a land that's supposed to serve as the sponge of the ecosystem. It absorbs excess water coming from the sea, so it doesn't inundate the land. also absorbs excess water coming from the land and debris, so it doesn't all get into the sea, protects wildlife, protects the ecological balance of the environment. Ramsar sites are not supposed to be developed in a way that will affect the natural balance. But if you look on your screen, you'll notice that the Sakumono Ramsar site has been depleted by more than 30% actually. From the original size of 6,730 acres of land, what is essentially left of the Ramsar site is 3,500 acres. And even as of this week, we have pictures of aggressive development going on within the Ramsar site. We've seen people cut down trees. We've seen people do development within an area that, ironically, the Forestry Commission, as far back as 2018, had been warning developers to stop. Indeed, there's a story of Sir John himself, as Forestry Commission chair, warning chiefs to stop selling land within the Ramsar site to developers and asking developers who had put up buildings there to regularize. The key institutions to protect the Ramsar site include the Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission, the TDC, the TMA, and the EPA. 4 institutions have overseen the reduction of this very important green zone. So all the communities around are supposed to be kept apart. The distance between Tema and Sakumono is reducing under the watch of 4 key agencies: Forestry Commission, EPA, TDC, and TMA. And about 30% of the Sakumono Ramsar site is gone. The second area of interest is a bit northwest of that. So as you get to the motorway, you would notice that there is a plot of land called Borteman. As we speak, the Ministry of Sports want to build a sports village, a sports university there to host the All Africa Games. That's not such a bad idea, right? Well, the problem is the land there was originally acquired for the purpose of the University of Ghana farms. So students studying agriculture who wanted to do practical studies would go there for their training. As it turns out, a large tract of that land is now going to be used to build a stadium. Now, there's a very interesting trend we've seen with lands that originally are used for supposedly good social purposes, which then leads to full-scale encroachment. Exhibit 1 on that particular area would be the Accra-Tema motorway buffer zone. When you get to the tunnel at East Legon, there's supposed to be at least a 100-meter buffer zone from the motorway into East Legon and to the right side as well. You notice that the first development close to the motorway was the East Legon police station. This was followed by the East Legon Cape Fit Club, owned by some of the rich and powerful people in East Legon. Well, once we allow a seemingly good development on a land that's supposed to be kept green to prevent flooding, to prevent encroachment, what you see is a raft of rapid development. So when you drive from the East Legon Tunnel all the way to the boundary road, that whole buffer zone has been developed into hard concrete. Despite, and I need to say this, despite a court judgment which says clearly that that was illegal. The AMA went to court and won a judgment that nobody should develop land 100 meters to the Accra-Tema motorway. Guess what? Once you build a police station, the people who are supposed to do the arrest are already breaking the law. So what do? It's a free-for-all. All the way to the new bridge close to the Ajiringano area. They call it Pele's Pool. There have been developments throughout. So on the issue of the Borteman land, there's a very big fear that that rhombus of land we've shown you up there could reduce rapidly as soon as the development of the Olympic Village starts. Then there's the third issue of the CSIR lands. Again, these lands were acquired, given to the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, one at Amrahia, the other is at Frafraha. I've shown you those plots of land. These lands are supposed to offer space for CSIR to not just do research, but to also grow. So, for example, there's a CSIR for the animal and livestock development. They are supposed to have grazing pasture for our cattle. Well, in the past few years, over 200 acres of the 1,000-acre land allotted to them has been encroached upon. CSIR is so terrified of the land guard situation that they are saying even their main administrative block may be taken over by encroachers because the land guards have gone out of control. How do land guards get so much power? Well, it appears the powerful in society, once they set their eye on the land, probably give some of the lands to people within the judicial system and the law enforcement agencies. That means that they are emasculated because, as I say, if you build a police station in a land wrongly acquired, essentially you've implicated the police. Or if you give a judge a contested land, he has an interest. So that's the issue. So the CSIR lands at Amrahia, and again, when we talk about the green belt, it's not just Ramsar sites, which are supposed to be the sponge, nor the university farms, which are supposed to be used for agriculture cover. The CSIR lands are also to be maintained to be green, but we've seen the rapid encroachment and development of those lands. I'll tell you the consequence of that later, but we are moving from the southeast all the way to the north. Another very important land which has been a victim of this wanton encroachment is the 632-acre aviation lands. So the aviation lands are on the flight path. So if you're flying into Accra Airport, you would pass on that stretch. There are aeronautical equipment on that land to help the aircraft on their way down. This land is ensconced between Ashalibotwe and Adenta. 600 acres of prime greenery. It's actually the only green belt within the Adenta enclave. A few years ago, the Minister of Lands, this is 2017, I won't call it reclassify the land, but he essentially did a recharacterization of the land. This land was supposed to be left exclusively for the civil aviation. There were a few buildings on it belonging to staff of the civil aviation, and then there were aeronautical and flight equipment on the land. Well, as we speak, the land has seen rapid and aggressive development. All the lands have been rezoned. Initially, this claim was denied. In fact, we were told that this land was being used to keep the excavators. So when you come from the Rich Junction side, you will see about 200 excavators. So this land was ostensibly to be kept. But what did they do? You would see first that the Ayalolo bus stop for Adenta was housed there. So it always starts with a good development. You have the bus rapid transit system. Put Ayalolo there. Then you see a couple of GOL stations. Next thing you know, development is happening rapidly. 600 acres. Now, this 600 acres is now being aggressively developed, not for ecotourism purposes, but for real estate. So this green belt within a very important part of the capital has also been sold to private developers after a rezoning in 2017. So from the Ramsar site to the university farms to the CSIR lands, now we have a rezoning of a green belt on an aviation plot. Moving westwards, the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission in Kwabenya, they were also given land, and all these lands are within the Greater Accra region. Don't forget that most of the Agans who live on the coast, these lands originally are their farmlands. So all these lands are either owned by Gamashi, Osu, Teshi, La, Nungwa, or Tema. Because they are all on the coast, but they usually go and farm. Some of these places were where they sought refuge when there was trouble. So you notice the old families from Osu. Kwabenya lands are similar. They belong to one of the main gang groups. Again, acquired for the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. Great idea. This is where Nkrumah's vision for Ghana, developing an alternative source of power, began from. Beautiful green belt. As we speak, when you drive from Hacho towards Atomic, you would notice aggressive development. In almost all these cases, the institutions that are given the mandate to use this land are overwhelmed. So GAEC, these are nuclear scientists and physicists. They are not trained in fighting over land. Churches have been built around. Shopping malls have been built. Schools have been built. The encroachment of the GAEC land has also taken about 30% of the original green land that they were given. So the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission lands have been massively encroached upon. And in the news a few weeks ago, the professors there complained about the effects. So from 2,000 acres of land, GAEC lands are now around 1,400 acres, 600 acres gone. Some is a consequence of reselling, others a consequence of encroachment by squatters. But probably the biggest of all of these is located on the western corridor of the Greater Accra region. I'm talking about the Wager Dam Densus Delta protected site. It's a massive piece of land. It borders the Wager Dam. It goes all the way to Dansom and Pambros area. Look at it. It is important for many reasons. There's a buffer zone around the Wager Dam. Wager Dam is where about half of Accra gets their drinking water. It's a buffer zone there. When there's a overflow, it allows the water to move naturally. Then there's important industries like Pambros salt close to it. Now, what are we seeing at this site? Structures have developed aggressively at places like Tetegu, Oblogo, Pambros, Lower McCarthy Hill, Lower Wager, Bocho Beach. People are even selling land which has water on it. Gives us two problems. The Ghana Water Company is getting polluted water. They have to spend more money to do the water cleansing for us to drink. That's the first problem. Well, the second problem is what we're seeing with flooding. Over the weekend, after the brief rains, we saw mudslides get into the toll booth area. The developments around have led to crazy erosion and movement of silt. If you go to places behind the Dansoman Cape Fit Club like Otojo, people are aggressively refilling land which is supposed to be a protected wetland. Again, like the Sakumo one, this is the sponge of the earth. People in high places are building aggressively. Police people are building. Politicians are building. They are putting up shops. They are putting up churches. They are putting up all kinds of things. So from 5,893 hectares of land, we have now 4,125 hectares. About 1,700 hectares have been encroached upon. The police look on. There are known land guards who terrorize people. Nothing is done because the method is the same. Once the political people get in, once the police are involved, once people in the judicial system get part of the land, it's a lost cause. What do these things mean for our survival? For every city, the major shock that a city will get, and a shock is defined as a one-off event that could massively destroy the city. You can have an earthquake, you can have a fire or a flood. Accra's greatest shock, according to Accra Resilience Strategy, is the shock of flooding. Because the issue with flooding is when water hits the ground, the harder the surface, the less it can percolate. So when there are trees and there's a green zone, it can rain, the water will seep in. Once you develop a green area or a wetland with concrete, you put up buildings, you are reducing the city's ability to cope with flooding. The prediction is that if what is happening at the Sakumono Ramsar site continues, the Accra Temamoto, which has already begun flooding, will continue to flood because the land between Tema and Sakumono is on a higher elevation. So places like Klagon, all the way to the motorway, to Ashaiman, even though they are getting flooded, in the next 20 years, if the development continues, they will become very serious, threatened areas for flooding. And this is going to continue throughout the East Legon area. So there's a major shock of flooding. The second issue that's going to happen is breakdown of law and order. Because once law enforcement gets involved in building in green areas, sometimes against court judgments, you compromise the police, you compromise the judiciary. What you see is land guards with names, with people who move with them, official land guards who are known, yet we can't do anything about it, even though the law says we shouldn't have land guards. So the issue of the encroachment of our green zones goes way beyond the Achimota forest. 40% of the reserve of which has been given ostensibly to the old family. There's a very strong school of thought that the reason the 90 acres increased to 180 and now 360 is that when the family got the land, some people already acquired portions of the land. But because of the legal barricade, the fact that the land was designated a forest reserve, they couldn't really exploit the land. So the agitation for the EI 144 was not because the old family really wanted the land. It was to free up the space for people who had acquired the land to actually use it for what they wanted. So apparently the EI was the last bit of the jigsaw to allow those who had acquired the land all the way from 2008 to 2013 right into 2022 to begin to use it for non-forestry purposes. The ball is in the court of the Minister of Lands. We are watching. He has to show us, first by the investigation of the Sir John issue, that those lands were rightly acquired and that they were not within a forest reserve enclave. The circumstances of the acquisition, the amount paid, and whether there was conflict of interest as Forestry Commission CEO. Then the rest of us will judge what happens between now, when the true owners of those lands are found, and what happens to the 146 hectares that have been now given to the old family. We wait to see what happens, because the EI was quite clear that nothing which would affect the rest of the forest will be done. But until then, let's be vigilant. Posterity will judge us all as we protect what is left of a very precarious Greater Accra region's green zone. This is the point of view. That was our view on a running story. When we come back, we'll bring you excerpts of an interview I had with the CEO of the MTN Group, Ralph Mupita. He was in Ghana. This is his third time in 6 months. I asked him, why is he coming to Ghana so much? How important is the MTN Ghana in the group? What is he doing about inflation? What are some of the issues with data? The issues of mobile money, the e-levy. It was an interaction I had with him on Friday. I'll bring you some of the best parts when I come back. Stay with us.